Hello, 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 and welcome back to From Within She Rises. I am recording this still sick because the episode that I was supposed to record last week doesn't really make sense anymore because it's after Christmas. I actually had recorded it. I needed to finish editing and uploading it, but I was dead last week. I was so sick. I was doing a lot of shadow integration. Then my girls got sick, and because shadow integration does put a lot of stress on your body, we got sick too, and that's okay. That is A-okay. But today, because the snake year is ending, and let me tell you, has it ever been a snake year for me? Today we are talking about the snake. We are redeeming her. We are redeeming her from all the way from the book of Genesis to Gnostic texts to Kundalini. We are bringing her back to life. We are going to be talking about the snake. We're not as a villain, not as temptation, but as an initiation. And we're talking about what it means to move from a snake year, which we've just had a shedding. How many layers did you shed? If you've been listening to me for a while, I call it spirals, but we have shed many skins, or we have dove in deeply into deeper and deeper spirals as the external layers get shed this year. It's been a wild ride. And we are moving from this shedding year into a horse year, from deep internal shedding into embodied motion. So let's drop in wherever you are. Soften your shoulders, close your eyes if it feels safe to do so. Unclenching your jaw. Letting your belly just move however it feels fit with your breath, whether it's a deep breath, really deep into the belly, or just a little breath. I want you to bring one hand today to the base of your spine, to your root, the place where survival lives, where instinct lives, where wisdom sleeps until it's finally needed. Taking a slow inhale through your nose and a long exhale through the mouth. If this past year has felt like loss, like your identity unraveling, like exhaustion that sleep could not touch, let your body hear this. You were not broken. You were shedding. One more breath in. And when you're ready, let us begin. So like I said, today is a redemption of the snake. We love her. She's not bad. And we're going to start off by talking about the snake in Genesis. And we're going to start by shifting the perspective, not from this evil demon, devil that can convince humanity to give up their perfection, but actually an awakening. So in the book of Genesis, the snake appears at the exact moment humanity becomes capable of self-awareness. You go from no idea who you are to, oh, I'm naked, maybe I need to leave. And the snake doesn't force, it doesn't attack, which it could. Snakes are venomous, right? Like when they feel under threat, they attack. Why didn't it attack? It asks a question, though, and that's really important because systems of control do not ask questions. They don't ask you to be curious. They do not ask you to look at your own perception, to think for yourself. They do not ask that of you. They command things of you. And they very rarely, I would say they never end in a question mark. Yet the snake introduces knowledge of polarity here with this question. Knowledge of self, knowledge of choice. You actually have a choice to eat from the tree or not. And Eve does not fall like the literalists have taught us to believe. She actually wakes up. And awakening always feels like exile at first. Because all of a sudden, the identity that you've been living under no longer feels like home. So of course it's going to feel uncomfortable. Everything that has kept you comfortable up until this point no longer aligns with this vision, this version, this consciousness, this awareness that you've been giving. Because innocence, if we're calling it that, or naivety, um, denial of the corruption around you maybe, cannot survive consciousness. We were taught to read this story as punishment. But I really want you to think about this right now. What if it's not punishment? What if it's actually initiation? What if leaving the garden was not a curse? It was not the first sin, but it's actually the beginning of radical responsibility on an individual level. And we do see a very different perspective in Gnostic texts. And I want to use the word Gnostic very liberally here, because to me, Gnosticism is inner gnosis. It's your direct gnosis from the divine, however that comes from. But the Gnostic texts are called that. So I'm thinking, as I'm talking about this, I'm talking about the Gnostic texts from the Nag Hammadi, like the Secret Book of John, or the Nature of the Rulers. And these are actually direct gnosis from somebody. And you think about it, like the Book of Revelation, for one, is literally a Gnostic text. Somebody had a vision, they wrote it down, and it somehow ended up in the canon because it was easy to take literally at the time. And it's easy to take literally now. So people aren't taking into account that it's actually Gnostic, and you really need to dive much deeper than that. If you've had any sort of gnosis, especially like weird dreams or whatever, you really have to start diving in and depicting what the layers are underneath. But anyways, back to the Gnostic text. The story in the Gnostic text of the creation of the serpent, of the snake, the story becomes much clearer here because the snake is actually aligned with the feminine aspect of God, Sophia. It is aligned with wisdom, aligned with divine intelligence, aligned with embodied knowing. The one who forbids knowledge is not the ultimate source, but it's actually that God. And Genesis is actually a false authority that survives on you being obedient. Isn't that interesting? I would say that most false authorities in our lives collectively right now also do not want you to have this beautiful awakening, shedding serpent year, to reflect back on the last 12 months and think, how have I woken up to the corruption within my own life? How have I shed layers of myself? And I use the word corruption lightly here because it's not necessarily that you're looking at the collective yet. You know, maybe this was all about shedding layers of yourself and you didn't even look out at the rest. And that's still quote unquote corruption. That's still masks that we wear to hide the pieces of ourselves that we think are wrong, the pieces of ourselves that we still shame, that we still hold guilt around. This is where the snake gets demonized historically, right? It gets demonized because wisdom that bypasses hierarchy threatens systems that are built on fear. And it's kind of beautiful to think that in this like evolution of From Within She Rises, where it's now become this podcast about female wrath, that in Gnostic texts, the serpent is literally, and not just Gnostic texts, because we're going to talk a little bit about Kundalini energy after this, or Kundalini after this, and it's also feminine energy rising. And so the snake is feminine. It really is. It's a feminine energy. It is the spark, the shedding that is required. It's the Kali energy that dismantles all the systems, all the corruption that says enough is enough. It's so interesting. I'm just going to do a little sidebar here that really doesn't have so much to do about this, but is a little sidebar on Kali, because I've been watching Stranger Things with my kids. I mean, you can comment and let me know if you were watching Stranger Things. I feel like if you're not watching Stranger Things right now, you live under a rock. I don't know. Although my husband's not really watching it. He's sitting at the kitchen counter, refusing to pay attention. He hates sci-fi. He's a sports only man. Sports and like mob movies. Such a typical man. Um, but I've been watching Stranger Things with my children. We've been like talking about Collie in this, um, or 8, if you will. And there were so many theories about her being bad. And I really realized as I kept watching them and as I was reflecting today on Kali as a goddess, because somebody brought up Kali the goddess and it didn't even connect to me that her name was Kali. Like if the Duffer brothers do not do her justice and don't allow her to be like the one that has to burn the shit to the ground because they named her Kali, they really didn't understand who Kali ever was. Like, why would you use that name if you didn't know that she is the goddess that that sees the corruption and says enough is enough and nothing of this can stand. And you can see that even, um, you can see it even in the episode. There's going to be a little spoiler alert here, but so I guess fast forward like 30 seconds. There's a little, you can see it in the episode where she's talking about like ending them, right? Like, and we see it as like, oh my God, this is so evil. But then as I'm reflecting from a perspective of Kali the goddess, like that's how she would react, you know? She would see the corruption down to the root of it and she would be like, we are the root of it and nothing can remain. And that's kind of also still how snake energy is, because snake energy is shedding over and over and over again. And it's not, snake energy is different in the sense that it's not like a fire that rips through and it's done. But, and I can vouch for that over the last 12 months. And I'm sure a lot of you have had very hugely impactful awakenings this year. But it's shed in layers, right? It's like one skin is shed and then the next skin and then the next skin. But at the end of the day, what remains is you at your purest form if you allow yourself to be actually shedding. If you allow these triggers and these big initiating moments throughout this year, if you've allowed them to shed. And it doesn't mean now that we can't sit back December 30th when I post this and we can't reflect back and be like, okay, this was a big moment of my life. You can, going back to the Course in Miracles, that I talked about at the beginning of this podcast, not this podcast episode, but the podcast itself. And you can always go back and atone, right? Like just because, go back and reflect on the big moments that happened in your life. Go back and just think about what they were trying to show you, what they were trying to tell you. Change your perspective. See it from like neutrality, from non-duality, and allow yourself to shed the pieces of you that had to react. The pieces of the snake skin that were asking to be seen so that they could be integrated, so that they could be shed and be new, become new. And so coming back to Sophia and the snake and all of this is where the snake gets demonized, because wisdom, like I said, that bypasses hierarchy threatens systems that are built on fear. The snake doesn't tempt, it does reveal. And revelation is always dangerous to anything that needs you asleep. And there's a lot of things right now collectively that are begging for you to sleep. But I think we see a lot of us really waking up to this and we're like, no, not anymore, right? This year, this snake year has really woken up pieces of us individually and collectively that are just like, how do we not see this before? You know? Like not even, if we're not even looking at just ourselves. I mean, I've had a lot of, how did I not see this before? I did not see that I was consenting to this being this aspect of this relationship that was toxic or whatever. And I'm talking reflecting back to like really far back. I think maybe I've said this in another podcast episode, but like reflecting back on toxic relationships that I've had in the past. Now I'm like, I consented to that, you know, and that's very radical for me to say. But that's like snake energy is exactly that, is the ability to look back and be like, I blamed this narcissist for so long, but I mean, I was 50% of creating that narcissist because I played the other side of the role. And isn't that just a wild place to be in? And yeah, I think like they're reflecting back and being like, how did I not see that I was actually part of that? That I actually just kept assuming that was the role that was going to be played. And the more I assumed and the more I brought it in, the more I saw this little piece, and then I'd react as if that's what it was. And then it would just keep coming into my life. We really do have beautiful spiritual sovereignty. If you can learn anything, it is that you have absolute energetic spiritual sovereignty. Like you are consenting or you are not consenting to everything that is occurring in your life. You really are. And I think sometimes it takes us much longer to realize that in certain aspects, especially like that. That is a situation that I've been out of for like close to a decade now, very close to a decade. And it has taken me that long to realize it. And that has been through a very large spiritually awakened year. And so that is snake energy, though. It's the ability to look back and be like, how did I not see this? And I think collectively there's a lot of people waking up to that, to being like, this pattern was here before and it's here again. Like, how did I not see it before? But how did I not see it earlier this year when it was here again? And now I'm seeing it, and that is the energy. It's that awareness. It's the consciousness, like being able to see things that were right in front of it, that it was too afraid to look at before, whether it's collectively or whether it's within yourself. So we've talked about Gnostic. We've talked about the book of Genesis. Let's talk a little bit about Kundalini, because that term gets thrown around a lot. What in the heck is Kundalini? It is the snake that lives in your body, right? So let's bring this out of theology now and into our nervous system. Because Kundalini is depicted as a coiled serpent. Because awakening is not, and this is where we get it wrong, it's not intellectual. And I can speak to that as somebody who gets gnosis, which is intellectual, and I can understand it. I can get these things and like have absolute faith and trust, especially at this point in the process, that if I get a knowing, I'm like, I don't even have to look for proof. I just know that the proof is going to fall into my lap at some point. If I need it, it's never for me. I just know that this is true. But it's a very different thing knowing that it's true and then being somebody who's clairsentient and finally embodying that truth, finally holding it in my body and really like walking the walk with that integrative piece. So if we're looking at this, also I want to like bring shadow work into it as well. We did this beautiful shadow work workshop yesterday. And the replay is free in our community, Mystic Misfits Society on School. If you guys are willing to go and check it out, it was beautiful. It is available until the 3rd, so jump in there and go rewatch it. But yeah, it just going back to shadow work as well. It is very much just like that, right? Like somebody was talking about a shift in perception, and I agree. Like the first part of it is intellectual. In some aspects, a lot of times it's like the intellectual, like I shouldn't have said it like that. I should have said it like this. Okay, that's intellectual. But how do I now like allow it to sit and digest in my body and integrate, right? And that takes like a lot of nervous system work to feel safe enough to feel those pieces of yourself that had to react. To be able to then like walk the walk of the woman that no longer speaks that way, or the man that no longer speaks that way. But it's probably women listening to this, but yeah, so it is just like the snake, the shedding. The shedding is also shadow work. This is like literally been 2025 has been shadow work galore, and it's not just gonna snap and be done. If anything, I think a lot of us have done so much shadow work this year that we've come up with a very good system. You've heard me talk about this time and time again on here. It's all about the micro moments. It's all about moment to moment choosing love or fear, right? Love is God, is Yeshua energy, Christ energy. And then fear is anything else. It's like, it's Antichrist. That's it. We're so worried about the mark of the beast, but the mark of the beast is literally every moment you react instead of calmly responding to a situation. But coming back to not only shadow work, but the theology of the snake having to then come into the body, it's the same thing, right? So Kundalini is depicted as this coiled serpent going up your spine because it is not just intellectual, it is somatic. It lives in the body. It rises through the spine slowly. You can do Kundalini yoga breath work that helps with that. Um, it's dismantling illusion layer by layer, belief systems, identities, attachments that don't serve your truest and highest and most loving self, so that the body doesn't fry itself, right? That's literally what we're doing. We think about energetically the shadows that we hold within ourselves, the traumas that we hold within ourselves. There's so many names for everything that I'm like, the labels that I use may not completely resonate with you, so just interchange them with whatever feels right for you. But um, those traumas, those shadows that we're holding in our bodies, literally fry the body, right? Like they literally, they they can create disease, like the actual disease. You think about the correlation between cancers and like repressed emotions. There is definitely some. There's some people that say it's sadness, or some people that say it's anger. And I've talked briefly about my past life regression, and it was definitely anger. Um, and this week, actually, I'm dropping an episode with my friend Liz on Friday, and it has to do with cancer. So if you want to listen to that one, it was flippin' amazing, and it does bring into it shadow work and healing, cancer or other diseases. It's very beautiful. And anyways, this is why snake year energy feels like burnout a lot of times, because bringing up shadow work, like I said, like obviously I still sound sick. That integration process is taxing on the body. It's short-term taxing, right? That's the difference, is like snake energy, snake years feel like interim burnouts. They can feel like illness. They can feel like a grief, because you're literally losing a person, a version of you that held you so beautifully for so long, that held you. I think it's important to also thank that version of you. It did everything it was supposed to keep you safe at the layer of awareness and awakening and consciousness, whatever you want to call it, that you were at. There's a level of love and compassion that's really required here in the snake year. Um, and sometimes it looks like these years look like relational collapse. Maybe something that you thought was so perfect is no longer perfect. What does it look like now as we dismantle everything that you were holding together as yourself to keep this relationship together? It is literally identity death, right? But when we think about shadow work or snake year work, it's short term. It's short term illness, burnout, all these things in here, there, and everywhere, intermittent, if you will. Versus when we continue to wear mask upon mask upon mask upon mask. I don't know why this is what's coming into my vision, is like the idea that if I don't know, I have nothing to do with snakes. I don't know them on a personal level in this physical 3D plane. I have to say this because I don't know why, I think it's necessary. But for some reason, what's coming into my awareness right now is the idea that if like a snake can't shed its skin and there's like layers building up, that it would get like infected. I don't know. Is that a thing? If you have snakes, please tell me if that's real. Um, but like that idea that if we keep wearing masks and we keep holding the trauma and we refuse to heal it and integrate it within ourselves, that it's going to cause chronic illness. It's going to cause chronic burnout, instead of it being like, okay, let me dismantle this one layer, take this one layer off. Okay, now I feel good. I got some momentum going. And then like another trigger happens and you're like, okay, let me do this one. And I think that's the only way you're going to get through the shadow work. Even right now, because you've had a year that was triggering. Snake years will be triggering. Maybe you refuse to do the work throughout the year, and there's nothing wrong with that. Now you have an opportunity to look back at the moments that felt like explosions and integrate them one by one. You can still do the retroactive shadow work, if you will. So yeah, if you continue to hold the shadows and hold the traumas and hold the masks in front of you, it's going to be chronic disease versus this like intermittent situation. And because you are like integrating piece by piece, it can feel, like I said, it can feel very burnouty, very illnessy. I had a lot of like reflecting back nervous system. Like I've talked about them before, like the canker sores in my mouth. I've had some migraines here and there, and it's always during a huge integrative moment in my life, it's usually short term. This time it was not. I had a fever for like 4 days. Um, it was a big integrated piece that I was doing, and of course, it's like right when my girls are sick. So it's something that would have maybe been like some canker sores and a migraine was a fever for 4 days. Um, and anyways, that's why you get these like big moments. And I want to say this not as like a don't do the shadow work, but as a, like it is short term, right? Like you're getting a hump of this as you integrate one of these retroactive pieces, or when it happens right now, when you're learning from what a snake year should have been or could have been at its full potential. How do I use this energy in the coming months? Because it's not just it's not like you're never going to be triggered again. A snake year is a really good opportunity to have to like exponentially learn all of these practices real quick. But these are things that you will need every year for the rest of your life. And again, why it feels like this, why shadow work feels like this, why snake year feels like this is not because something goes wrong, but it's because the body is recalibrating for truth. And a lot of Kundalini awakenings, the way they describe them, the snake energy going up the spine, they feel very disruptive to your nervous system. So it's really important. I just want to drill this in to create systems around you that are very nurturing and keeping your nervous system feeling safe. Whether it's daily breath work, whether it's daily yoga, whether it's daily meditation, whatever it looks like is really important. But snake year is almost over, and snake year was our number 9. So let's talk a little bit just about symbolically, numerologically, I can't even speak, what happened, because we just passed through a year 9. What the hell is a year 9? A year 9 is not about starting, and it is about ending, and I'm sure you felt that. The harvest, the closure, the forgiveness, the grief that you felt as you shed the layers. Like year 9 with a snake year is just like complete new identity. You're closing a chapter, right? So maybe you felt like you have a new identity this year as you've let go of layers, but now we're moving into the next year, which would be a year 1. We won't get into that just yet, but um, where it's a new beginning. But the snake energy plus the year 9 energy is ruthless in the best way because it removes what cannot come with you into the new beginning. It removes relationships that were built on old identities that kept you safe in the short term. It removes roles that you've now outgrown. It removes beliefs that were once protecting you, protecting that beautiful version of you. Let's always come back to loving that beautiful version of you that protected you for so long. But now that you are awake, that you have shedded, these things constrain you. They don't protect you anymore. So if you felt like everything dissolved, it was because it had to end cleanly. And that can be so difficult. But now we're crossing into this threshold. You know, I love Hecate and thresholds, hedge witch energy. Like, that is so me. I feel like I am the liminal rider. I don't even know what to call myself. That sounded weird. Anyways, this snake energy, this inward, subterranean, slow energy is now moving into horse energy. And horses are quick, right? They're not crawling on the floor. Slithering, I think is the word I was looking for. But horse energy is movement. It's momentum. It's freedom. It's expression. It's going. It's beautiful and free. The horse doesn't shed in the dark. It runs out in the open. So you spent a year dismantling this version of you that no longer serves you. And now you're going to spend a year allowing this new version that has come out of the cocoon to be mother effing free. Desires will return. Your voice is going to return. Your vision will be able to be manifested. But here's the warning that no one gives you. If you don't integrate your snake here, if you haven't done the shadow work, the horse year is going to feel reckless instead of liberating. It's going to feel like a movement without being beautifully embodied. It's going to feel like recreating old cycles. So the invitation of this year is to move as who you are meant to become, not who you were trying to shed before. And that's like when we're talking manifestation, that's always what it's about, right? Because we can do all the masculine shit, like write down this, say these affirmations every day, do the thing, do this vision board, blah, blah, blah. But are you now living your life like the version that already holds the new manifestation? Or do you continue to live your life like the woman that's waiting for the opportunity that's just going to snap her into it? Because that's not how you're going to get it. And this horse year is also a year one. And a year one is not about proving anything. It's not about speed or visibility or doing more or working harder. It's about alignment in motion. It's about letting your body lead again. Christ through the body. You know, I love saying that. Letting that intuition, that discernment, those aha moments, I should do this, I should do that, lead. Not letting the wound lead, not letting your fear lead, not letting the old survival identity lead. The horse does not ask for permission to run. Let's say it's a free rein horse. You're not attached to a rein. You are just out there free in the wild. It does not ask for permission to run, but it always knows where it's going. And that's what this year is about. So before you rush into motion in your horse year, pause and ask yourself, have a little reflection practice. Ask yourself, what did I shed? What did I learn this year? What skin am I no longer meant to wear? Now, I have created a free reflection guide to help you integrate your snake year before accelerating into the horse year. You'll find it linked below, or you can just join us inside the community. I have linked it there as well, or I will be linking it there as well inside of our free community in the Mystic Vault if you're interested. And if you really want to dive deep into a little shadow work over the next couple of months, we are doing a Jung and Jesus 6-week integrative experience in our Threshold membership, which is $33 a month. And we're bringing it up to $55 on the 3rd. We've been talking about doing this for a couple of months and we just don't increase our prices. So we're doing it. But yeah, we have weekly calls. We have a beautiful Telegram community. So if you're interested in really going full steam ahead on your shadow work, then please join us. It's going to be amazing. And remember, the snake was never evil. It was always a catalyst. The horse is not going to be reckless. It's just freedom with direction. So thank you for walking this spiral with me today. Thank you. I love you. And as always, I'll see you in the next spiral.